Right, so today I get to connect with the awesome Matthew Curran. Matt, Maddie, welcome to Potential is Human, and thank you for choosing to share the space today. I really am interested in understanding more about your journey of transformation.
Yeah.
And let's probably start with where you're at right now, right? So a man who has his own fashion label, Patrick James. Tell us a little bit more about Patrick James and what Patrick James means to you.
Positive, right? Yeah, well, thank you, and thank you to everyone listening. I think this is a really, really special occasion, and yeah, thanks for the invite, and just amazing to share this time with you and this space. And to get to your question, so yeah, Patrick James, as you mentioned, is my own fashion line. I started it over a year ago. And where we are currently is, ramping things up and getting ready for our autumn-winter collection, which in itself has faced one or two challenges, which I'm currently sort of dealing with now. But yeah, that comes with the industry, and I guess it's the nature of the beast. But in a really good space business-wise, and like I said, it's just it's really, really exciting to be doing what I'm doing and just be in a creative space and just having fun. I think that's the most important thing right now. Yeah.
So like when I look at you, right, I see somebody who's like not afraid to reinvent themselves. So it's kind of like I've seen many shades of Matt, and I love that because it's something that I believe we are all actually doing on this journey. Like we're all evolving, and we need to give ourselves more permission to express our truth as we come closer and closer to what that means for ourselves.
Yeah.
Now, being in fashion and being a creative, Matt, like we get to see like your flavor, but it wasn't always necessarily like this. Take us back even a year, prior to the label, maybe when the ideation of the label was there. What were you doing then? And what was your day-to-day actually looking like?
Well, I think the best timeline to take it back to, Rise, let's take it back to 2019. I think that's a time when both you and I reconnected and our paths sort of realigned in Cape Town. And you, in your coaching journey, were also going through, that transformation. And we linked up at a stage where, you could say that I was pretty lost. I was pretty, unaware of where I needed to be and unaware of what it was required of me to live a fulfilled and meaningful life, So prior to Patrick James, I spent a few years in England with my girlfriend Sarah. We then came down to Cape Town, and it was at that time when I actually crossed your path that I really, really was in a phase where I was seeking. And I think seeking is a good word because we often attach sort of certain validation to outcomes. Oh shit! Sorry. Seeking validation to certain, roles or your place within society, And for me personally, it was a case of always finding what spoke to me. And you mentioned earlier that, you've seen many shades of Matt. And I think that is quite prevalent because I've always been someone that, has never sort of stayed in one place for too long if it wasn't serving me or if it didn't feel right, So yes, I can protest that I have been, in and out of various jobs in certain industries. But looking back now, those were all for a reason, because it all sort of directs you and puts you in positions where you can learn through experience. And oftentimes, it's the failure that teaches you more. So when we crossed paths, I was going through a lot of failure and a lot of trial and tribulation and testing things and, being squeezed or being forced into certain situations where, you find yourself doing the certain thing, even though it's not that fulfilling. So, that's kind of where I was prior to Patrick James. And then I actually found a really, really exciting job in the corporate world in the tech space. And the job there was primarily around people and optimizing people and getting the best out of them. And I think that's where I really, really, for the first time in my career, actually had a job that I enjoyed. And, I saw a future in that. But as one, as it so happened, that job fell through, and I was, made redundant. And I was then forced again to reevaluate and look at it and look at myself and ask, what is it that, I would like to do? It's not necessarily finding a purpose. It's actually more about finding something that would get you out of bed and something that's really exciting. And like you said, when we first came across our paths in early 2019, I was already playing with this idea of getting into a creative space, doing something tangible with my hands and, seeing something come to life through creativity and development. And yeah, I was in a position where I had just been retrenched. I had no North Star. I had nothing holding me back. I had nothing to lose. I had an amazing support system. And I threw all my eggs into one basket. And here we are.
Here we are, indeed. There's two things that you said there, Matt, that are super powerful. And when we look at what you've shared, you wanted something to wake up for in the mornings.
Yeah.
Were there times where you then felt like you didn't want to wake up and as if you were facing each day with no sense of purpose or fulfillment?
Well, I guess you could say that looking back, but when you're in that, I would say, negative feedback loop, if you want to call it that, it is just a monotonous routine. So yes, you are just getting up, putting your clothes on, going to work, coming home, doing your activities. So you can get caught up in that very quickly, And fortunately enough, I realized that wasn't for me. And that race and that constant monotony, if you're going to be subject to that, why not have it be a little bit fun or a little bit more exciting? And essentially that's the decision I made was, if I'm gonna make something of my time and of this rat race, then why not on my own terms? And like I said, at that time I was able to because I had nothing to lose. I literally had nothing. I had just been retrenched. I had an idea. I had created a supply chain. So I was in a position where I could do it. And fortunately enough, that was my reality. So yes,
Let's go straight into that nothing to lose aspect of where you were, right? So unpack what you mean by that, because it doesn't mean that you had all of the resources available to you to just do whatever you please. You had to really step into more of a space of I have nothing and everything kind of to lose. Here I go, watch me leap, right?
Yeah. So it's that nothing to lose, right? I think what it comes down to is that it was at that very moment where I realized that I have got nothing to, I don't have to seek any more validation, because the more validation I seek, I'm going to just be back in this same situation, because that's all it was, seeking external validation. So yes, I had nothing to lose in the sense that I was able to reinvent myself on my terms, in my awareness, setting my North Star. And I think that for me was the biggest Eureka moment was, I had tried to, do the right thing. And by right thing, I mean follow the normal social norms. And that just kept coming back in the negative feedback loop, saying this is not for you. So it does get to a point where you have to just say to yourself, well, I've got nothing to lose. And if I don't try, I will never know. So you either try and fail, or you just stay in the loop. And that's ultimately where I was at that stage. And you've seen that progression happen, because you've literally seen me take the jump off the edge,
And what a powerful progression it's been, right? The fact that we can have this conversation, let's go back again to 2019. You stepped quite boldly into the coaching process. I remember you arriving for the first discussion with me, and it was you were really there to create something for yourself. I know what that experience was like for me, the opportunity to hold space for you and learn from you while also guide you on a process. What was it like for you? Because there were certainly times where I can at least say that it was hard work. You were really digging deep and looking inwards, because Matt was now deciding it's time for me to break free from the box that I'm in, because I'm perhaps a little bit more colorful than what is being offered in this box. And it's time for Matt to play outside the lines.
Yeah, well, Matt at that stage was, I'd comfortably say he was quite a broken man. He was a man without any direction, a man with, not much really going for him. But I knew that there was something within me that was greater than this vessel. There's always been something within me that I firmly believed that there's something bigger than this, and that's when we crossed paths, because it was at that point when I, needed to break the old and sort of create the new. And it was at that point where you crossed my path and you put that stake in the ground and you were like, we are going to do this. And I needed that sort of guidance at that stage, So coaching for me was, I would say, the reminder of my life and the reminder of who I am, because my conscious journey has been deep and long and many, many years. So for me, the whole notion of self-awareness wasn't new. It was just I needed to reignite it, and that for me was the coaching journey.
I remember like when you told me about Patrick James, right?
Yes.
And often when I talk to people, I hear of these objectives or goals that people have, which is phenomenal. But like you literally told me you're going to have a fashion label. And I remember like you weren't even anywhere near having a fashion label. But I always could see what you were saying. Like you have this creative expression in you, and an edginess is the actual word that I would use for you. And it was just a case of now channeling that focused attention into creating Patrick James.
Yeah.
And good Lord, here we are today.
Well,
So you mentioned Matt was broken. So please go for it. You go first.
Boy, I think it's a case of, when you go through this journey and you start taking a step back and realizing that you need to just be objective about it. You start realizing, that there are certain, for want of a better phrase, breadcrumbs or little golden nuggets that are placed before you and in your past that set you up for where you are. So yes, at that stage, I always wanted to have my own fashion label. And fortunately for me, I've been very fortunate in the exposure I've had to fashion. My older sister being in the fashion world for many years. My other sister, she's been in the beauty game for many years. So I've always been exposed to that. I've been sewing since I was like, knee-high to a grasshopper. So when you look back at that, you now realize that all of those things were all put in your path for a reason back then, and now they're all coming to fruition, And yeah, it was, like I said, the coaching was the reminder and the guidance of just letting that come through and letting that just be what it needs to be.
Yeah, the reminder that like we are always living out something greater than ourselves, right? Is what I always want to remind people to like tap into. Often like the friction and the pain that comes with trying to like be a certain way is what can cause us to like trip over ourselves and get a little bit stuck.
Yeah.
But we need to remember, as you've said, like the breadcrumbs are there. The past, that's what we think the past is, but it's always setting us up in some way to really express more of who we actually are, and to live with a greater sense of freedom. But you also said that Matt was a broken version of Matt. There's so many people who might feel that way about themselves right now.
Yeah.
As if they're in this broken place. Tell us about what broken felt like for you. What was the experience? What level of thinking was happening for you? What was happening within you in a place of brokenness, in your words? So,
brokenness for me, I would definitely say dark energy, feeling a bit lost. From a physical perspective, your body almost contracting, not really wanting to see the goodness in life. There's always a reason why it's you, and it's why you and not them. There's that constant discussion where you've got this negative voice in your head. And for me, being a broken man, there were suicidal thoughts. It was a dark time. You were there when that happened. So being broken to me was just ultimately not really knowing what what it is I wanted from this life. And that's the ego. So you catch yourself in the ego there. What do you want from this life? Constantly, seeking, constantly looking. And I think that for me was the brokenness, was instead of just being, I was constantly looking to validate myself, whether it's by your peers or whether it's by friends or family. But, there's a constant external validation that goes on in the world these days. And personally, for me, that brokenness led to that point where I didn't really know what it is that I wanted. I was constantly doing things for the external validation. But when you really look inside, it was that point where you're like, okay, well, I actually am quite lost if I really, really look at what it is that I want, But hey, within that brokenness, there's growth. And I think that was the most magical part about that, because if it wasn't for me being as broken as I was, we wouldn't have crossed paths.
Sure. And for me, it's almost like we think we're broken, right? That's identity, which is being forced to shift and grow, thinks it's broken.
Yeah.
But the truth of who you've always been has never been broken. And that's where I get to see you from. And that's where we get to have our discussions from. And in terms of the coaching process for you, right? Did you go anywhere outwards to find what you needed to find? Or would you say that this was 100% an inward journey for you?
Can you explain what you mean by going outwards, boy? What do you mean?
So was it
the modalities or just the coaching modality?
Was it about creating more outside of yourself and like doing the next thing and getting more validation and, I don't know, creating the next result for yourself? Or was it more about an inward journey to discover truth and clarity for yourself in order to then express yourself in the way that you chose to?
Definitely the latter, as you mentioned there, Ryan. I think for me, it was most importantly the journey about going inwards. And I think the one thing that stood out with me and our coaching journey was, and I was reminded of it last night, was surrender. And I think, through the coaching journey, the first couple of, chapters you go through, it's all the awareness creation. But as you start creating that awareness that is the proponent of your journey, that awareness allows you to understand what surrender actually means. And for me, I think the coaching journey was a real big, wake up call about, around that. And that in itself,
without the awareness,
is an inward journey, because you have to. It's very, very hard work to hold yourself accountable, but also take a step back and almost relinquish control.
It's like such a paradox, right? It's like I'm going to do the work and I'm going to find some sort of flow for my life again.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to relinquish the control and not hang on so tightly. And it's almost hard for me to language and explain. But when you experience it, you start to see where we were holding on so tightly to something that we needed and had to be, rather than actually coming from a heart-led space and just creating in the world with a sense of surrender each day and less attachments to the outcome.
Absolutely.
If I may, I'm going to bring you back to the suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
And I honor this in you very deeply because it's something that I've shared that I also experienced. And if we had to get very real with a lot of other people, I think it's far more common than we may actually discuss and know in society.
Yeah.
So when Matt was at that place, what was that experience for you? Because now you're having these thoughts which are actually like questioning the value of existence. But what realization perhaps came from that for you? Because here you are and you're an incredible individual doing your thing, but also supporting others to do theirs. So if somebody was listening and was like, shit, this Matt guy was like at a place where he was suicidal in his thinking, what allowed you to come out of that?
I think it was, and in my case, having the awareness to just reach out and ask for help. I think help for me was the best thing. As men in society, we generally try to take on things on our own because we're ego driven. We try and be the warrior, you know, where sometimes you don't have to be that warrior. Sometimes you can just be, you know, someone in the background and just ask for help. And I think, yeah, in my case, right, it was Sarah, you know, yeah.
Wow. Tell us about Sarah. Tell us about the woman in your life.
Sure. Okay. Where to start? Well, yeah, you know Sarah really well. We've been dating for close to 5 years now, and yeah, she is just amazing, boy. She's so graceful. She's so empathetic. She's so mature in her thinking, and just the compassion and the space that she holds for me as a man, as someone that believes in, you know, strong masculine energy. She allows me to express that, but also allows me to express my feminine energy in a creative and constructive, safe space. And yeah, you know, I think the biggest thing for us is that, you know, we have a deep, meaningful partnership, and yeah, that's Sarah.
Yeah, you guys certainly do, and it's wonderful to see how your relationship has grown since I've known you guys, since you've been doing this deep work.
Yeah.
I know you've been carrying Sarah through her own process as well, and how often she just is the strength that you need. So
yeah,
you guys are amazing in terms of a couple. Patrick James, now let's play in this energy of your creativeness, right?
Yeah.
Having your own fashion label. So for me, that's like mind-blowing, because like there's a process where you're taking something that doesn't actually exist, like garments, right? Clothing items. And then there's this process towards seeing that vision of what you want to create. Then the mechanical process of like the material, the dye, actually stitching this thing together.
Yeah.
And then seeing your end creation. Tell us what that's like for you, because I'm sure that's where all of the like fun and goodness flows from.
Well, yeah, right. And I mean, disclaimer, you know, I didn't go to fashion school. I'm self-taught. I taught myself how to sew. I've got a huge amount of thanks for, you know, my current mentor, a gentleman who's teaching me everything I know regarding garment making and construction. And, you know, for me, it is a process. It's been a massive learning curve for me. You know, not coming from industry, I've had to really put myself at the coalface. I've had to really put myself out there, network, ask the right questions. And I think that's possibly why it's taken me, you know, upwards of 2 years to get to where I'm at, because, you know, it's taken me that long to build formidable relationships with the right people, you know, and as you said, it is a process. And like I said, I'm self-taught. So going from an idea to teaching myself how to garment draw, to teaching myself how that will translate from a construction perspective, how it translates onto a person's body, how the garment flows, different materials have obviously do different things on a body. And for me, it's just been a case of putting yourself in a situation where you know nothing, but you can learn everything. And going and being a student again over the last 2 years, and now actually starting something a bit more formal in the whole construction space, that's the fun side about it, right? You know, there's always going to be social media, there's always going to be the business side of things. For me, I really, really take pride in the fun and the creative, because that's where you get to know what it is you are constructing. You know, and oftentimes I always say to you, I'm on the way to the studio, I'll see you later, you know, and then you'll call me later and I'll tell you about an amazing day I had. That for me is what gets me out of bed, you know. And like I said, I'm all self-taught. I'm literally all self-taught. Yeah. I knew nothing. I taught myself how to sew. Like I said, but fortunately I've been exposed to fashion. I've been exposed to the beauty industry for many, many, many years. So I've had a really good source of information in my sister. So yeah, I'm fortunate in that regard. But when it comes to the actual, you know, designing and stuff, that's all self-taught.
Mm-hmm. And I see it, you know, like I see it in your being. I see it in the way you take on each new day, the way you show up in front of people now. Because really, the most rewarding thing for me is to see someone go from like A to B.
Yeah.
From like not being fulfilled, or like, you know, not quite sure of what they're meant to be doing in this lifetime, to like finding a greater sense of fulfillment and purpose in their life, and just like releasing what they've been holding back for who knows how long. And with you, it's just like this new flow. So sometimes I'm like, oh shit, who's this guy? Like, world, like, hold on. But in terms of being able to express yourself so wonderfully through something like fashion and clothing, tell us a bit more about Patrick James. Maybe give people insights around the type of fashion you create and the sustainability behind it, because you've also put conscious attention into what you're creating from that aspect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So first of all, the name is my dad's name. My dad is Patrick James Curran. So there's obviously that energy in it, based on tradition and values that I was brought up on, and that permeates into the business. And from a consciousness perspective, yeah, right. I certainly do believe in the energy that you put into your garments, and the energy that you put into the people that make the garments will show. And to answer your question about sustainability, I think there are multiple ways that you can look at it. And for me, yes, most of my stuff, if not all of my stuff, is sourced locally. But to me, the sustainability around the business is putting an effort into growing our local textile industry, because there's sustainability in providing empowerment and employment to people who have skills. And you would rather want a sustainable industry lasting a long time, providing jobs for a longer period of time. And that is how I'm sustainable. So my focus is to grow and to do everything I can to put positive energy and positive consciousness into the local fashion industry in my own little way. However that looks down the line, I don't know, but it's just one foot in front of the other for now. And that's pretty much the approach.
I need a sip. Hold on before we continue this. You're wearing Patrick James right now, if I'm not mistaken, right? Is that one of your shirts?
It is.
Of course you are, living the brand.
Have to.
Where do you see this going? Like, and don't care to make sense. Like right now, if you could have your moonshot with regards to Patrick James, where is Matt? And said another way, where is Patrick James wanting to go through Matt?
This is going to be the best understated brand in the world, hands down. That's my moonshot. That's what I'm aiming. And there's multiple ways we can look at that. It could be textile related, it could be NFT related. The world is evolving, and so are consumer habits. And it's just a matter of staying relevant, staying empathetic. My number one business value is customers first, sales second. And that I believe, is what will show through is the empathy and the message that we're trying to share about Patrick James. About staying in your lane. It's all about being you. Don't get caught up in comparison. And just express yourself. And if we can provide a modality, being fashion, where you can express yourself and be a better version of yourself, then that's exactly what we aim to do.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah,
it's your tagline. It's your motto. What does this mean? And tell us more about stay in your lane.
Well, I think it's just about being true. There is so much going on around us. There are so many things that you can attach yourself to, attach validation to. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about self-expression and pure, true self-expression. And that is what staying in your lane is. Because if you're in your lane, there's just no need to look anywhere else. There's no need to compare. There's no need to be someone that you really don't feel like being. Just be yourself. Stay in your lane. That is the essence of it.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Self-expression, right? It's like, it's that thing. Like, people are hiding behind a certain layer. You were as well. Like, there's no denying it. And it's incredible that through this journey, through having your own label, through getting stuck into your creative flow, your expression is being shared more. And I see, like, Matt, I'm like, bang, there he is. And I can actually, I'm sure you can see the same in this human, but like, I can see when you go back into the, like, not being seen, versus to the like, boom, I'm in my power. Here I am because like I really want to create something special. And I can just see it more and more regularly. It's becoming more of a natural way for Matt to be. And as you go on and creating the like greatest understated company and brand in the world, here's a question. What still scares Matt? Because I think people also need to see that like, although great shifts are happening and we're becoming more and more of who we really are, it doesn't just like, you haven't arrived, you know, and like we still have our own very human experiences that we're going through, our own fears, our conditioning that we continue to discover. So like from a place of just like really authentic sharing, what still currently scares Matt?
Well, I'm still human, man. And for me, it's the failure is still the thing that gets me out of bed every morning, you know, but it's, for me, I face failure so much that I welcome it, but it still is a reminder of what it is that needs to be done. So for me, the fear of failure is not something I run away from. I actually use it as a motivator because the thought of failing or the feeling of the failures that I've had before is not something that I would like to enter in again. So as human as it gets, my greatest failure is failing in Patrick James because I've literally hedged all my bets on this. And that's how much I believe in this brand.
I acknowledge you so much for how much you actually have put in, because I know that like your decision to do this, your financial contribution, your contribution in your time and your daily life, like it really all flows into this thing that you believe in.
Yeah.
And that feeling of failure, right? It will come again.
Of course.
Like it's coming again, and it's teaching us and it's reminding us to walk even deeper into this like experience of what failure could even be, because it's all false programming.
Yeah.
And it brings Matt again to like who Matt really is, you know, and what Matt has committed to achieving. Because I personally feel, and I've seen time and time again, just as we think we're getting it right and we kind of get ahead of ourselves, then we get reminded that like, stay in your lane, like stay humble. And that sense of like, oh, can I really do this comes back. And it's that contrast that most would run away from. Like the moment it feels like it's too heavy, it's so easy to turn away and to think like, maybe I can't do this, or try and find some sort of distraction that prevents you from actually facing what's going on for you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you lean into the discomfort, like what you find on the other side is that you are like far stronger and greater than you actually knew. So where is Matt currently leaning in? Like I know you've got your business. You're someone who thrives off of keeping fit. You're somebody who pours into other people. Like where does Matt currently feel in his personal life and in his humanness? Like things are challenging him and things are actually being quite scary.
That is, I mean, let me give it a thought. I mean, a lot of my time, right, is consumed by the business, you know. So, you know, that is very, very much in my reality and my peripheral, you know. But within that, there are a lot of nuances, you know. There's the thought of, you know, cash flow issues, you know. There's the thought of, will this next collection sell? Are people going to like my clothes? Are they going to think that my designs are cool, or, you know, are hip, or whatever you want to call it, you know. So those are the constant thoughts, you know, that my human plays on. And in terms of where I'm leaning into, it's leaning into acknowledging that those are always going to be there. You can't please everyone, but all you can do is just do your best, and just be a good person whilst you do it. That will shine through, you know. So I mean, in terms of what scares me right now in the short term is exactly that, you know. Is this next collection going to sell? Because it's something that I put a lot of effort into, and I just really want, you know, it to make me proud, you know. And that for me is scary, because in a product related industry, your success is validated by the number of sales you make, you know. that is, it's binary. If people don't buy your things, you can have the most, conscious approach to your product. But if people don't buy it, it doesn't mean anything.
For sure. And I appreciate that you can be so honest about like, yes, I'm here and a lot has changed, but I still have these very real everyday experiences where maybe self-doubt trickles in, fear trickles in and tries to get a hold of you. And we still have these days where we're like, what's going on here? I thought I was finally there and I could breathe. But with every like inhale comes the contraction of the exhale. And this is the beauty of the experience, right? To play, to show up, to feel, to fall, to stand up again. And you're somebody who I've seen do that in your own way time and time again. So, Matt, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being open about where you're at. I personally wish you ridiculous success behind Patrick James and your life. Yeah. Is there anything that you perhaps want to share? Maybe before you do that, I've actually got one more question for you.
Sure.
And I haven't prepped you for this, so take it and just, flow with it. What if you didn't step into coaching? What if you didn't make that decision for yourself to actually do maths to the best of his ability?
Well, I probably would still be where I was before I met you. But hindsight's a beautiful thing. I don't know where I would be. I must say, I am very, very fortunate and blessed to have some deep and meaningful people in my garden, so to speak. And if it wasn't for a coach, I'm sure someone would have picked me out and said, okay, there's something within you that we can see that you can't. That's what I believe. I believe that, the people around me, in my networks, I've got that. I'm blessed to have that. So, it definitely would have been a much longer journey. I probably still would have got there. It might have been a very different journey, but that's hearsay. That's an alternative reality. We're here now. You and I crossed paths when I needed to cross paths. I needed the coaching when I needed the coaching, and I'm right where I'm meant to be because of that journey.
Excellent. Excellent answer. Because I'm almost like, when I asked that question, it actually is irrelevant. Like, you did do it. You did choose yourself. You invested in yourself, and like, here you are. And you're so right. There's so much more working in our favor than we can possibly know in any given moment. I think the decision from me is to just like keep showing up, right? Show up even when you have no cooking clue around like how this is going to flow next, and like how can I actually change my current circumstances. And it's just like take a breath and show up, because something greater is going to catch you and going to hold you and show you that like the story that you were caught in of limitation is not actually
exactly right. And you've touched on something very pertinent, and I think that is, it's the showing up. It's the consistency. It's the literal 1 foot ahead of the other. I think oftentimes people get caught up in, the 6-month plan, the 1-year plan, the famous 5-year and 10-year plan. I think we get so caught up in the end result that you forget to start, because it seems so daunting, because it's such a long thing to try and comprehend, let alone try and accomplish, and just show up consistently, even if it's like Andy will tell you on his yoga mat, whether it's 5 minutes or 500 minutes, as long as you're just there every single day. It's the consistency that matters, So I think that for me was like you say, it's just the showing up. It's a showing up thing that is so important. It's literally facing a fear every single day, whether it's getting in the cold water, whether it's having a cold shower, whether it's, following a specific regime or a protocol. Just do it. I think that's the best thing.
Thank you, Matty. That whole like the 5-year plan and the 10-year plan. I'm like, oh, come on, in my own life, when I let go of that rigid idea of who Ryan had to become, like so much more started to flow. And yes, have a have a vision, like
Yeah.
know who you want to be, because that anchors you in the reason that you choose to embody a certain,
But
vision
again,
for your life.
before you break that, and before a person breaks that mold, it is just because of previous domestication and the lives that we were brought up in, and that's also okay. You also can't hate your past because of it. We're all dealt the same hand of cards. Just depends how you want to play them.
Yeah. I once wrote that like you can't judge yourself into the version of the person that you would love.
Mm-mm.
And that's what you're saying, like with the past, like it's done. Like, let it be. Like, it's allowed you to get to where you are right now. Your whole life has prepared you for this moment today to carry you forward in the most empowering way. And again, just, choose to show up. So, Matt, you're an incredible friend. You're an incredible person. Not only that, I also celebrate you for choosing to do the work, because it's so easy to, just be a victim to circumstance, whereas you've constantly chosen to lean in. I know that you still are. Any parting words that you want to offer anyone, anything that you need in order to be fully complete with our conversation today?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that I would like to part with is that, to all your listeners, just it's all going to be okay. And if it isn't, just reach out. There's someone there that's willing to help you. And hugs are free. Honestly.
Thank you.
Cool.
Here's to your success.
Yeah.
And have an excellent, excellent day.